Irish Media Network. We entertain.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to Irish Media Network Sports Update. I'm your host, Joe Caulfield, and on tonight's show, we're going to be talking all things Premier League. It is back, and thank God. So Wednesday of this week, Sheffield United took on Aston Villa, followed by Arsenal versus Man City, and already we have controversy, we have calamity, we have VAR and Hawkeye malfunction, we have David Luiz having a meltdown, we have stuff to talk about on the football front again, and I'm dying for the episode to get stuck into it. So let's do that. Joining me this week is Virgin Media, RTE and Off the Ball broadcaster and journalist. The Red Men TV presenter is Jonathan Higgins is joining me. Jonathan, thanks so much for joining the show.
Hi Joe, how are things? Great to have live sport back, isn't it?
Oh, come here. How much immeasurably has your world improved with the return of the Premier League?
Well, straight away, simple things. We've stuff to talk about again. I can now talk to my family and friends, as sad as that sounds.
I know myself and Marie Crowe were just chatting last week and saying how stilted dinner table conversation has become without sport.
Yeah, it's probably a poor reflection of my personality and whatnot, but yeah, self-confessed sports addict. So yeah, I'd say 85, 90% of my conversations are based on sports. So yeah, and straight away, and of course, the Premier League just doesn't fail to disappoint. Really, the quality of football mightn't be the best, but my God, do you get entertainment and do you get drama?
100%. So come here, tell us about that first and foremost in terms of the viewing experience, stadia without fans, the quality of the football maybe not being 100% there right now. What was your impression of last night's football?
Yeah, well, like understandably, as we've seen with the Bundesliga and La Liga as well, to a certain extent, understandably so, the quality of, of fitness and of football then as a result isn't up to pace yet. It took Germany a couple of rounds in particular to come back into the flow. And you saw that in particular, I think the first game Wednesday night, the Sheffield United Villa game, you really saw that. It was a game that struggled for quality, really. And even a team as good as Man City, they really struggled for maybe about 15, 20 minutes of the game before their quality on the ball, showed up and they were able to express themselves then. So it will take a couple of games. Professional footballers, they do live in a pampered world in many aspects. It's still the basics of not being able to get out to a training ground to get a pitch. It shows, and they're all human beings at the end of the day. So it will take a couple of games, no doubt, to get into the pace of it. But yet, no, it was great. And you have to look at the likes of Kevin De Bruyne Wednesday night. What an absolutely unbelievable player. I don't think I've ever been as impressed with a midfielder since back to the days of Steven Gerrard. He's really in that ill cut from the same cloth there, really. The way the balls that he puts through from that outside right, number 8, it's just an absolute joy to watch. So yeah, no, it was great to have him back Wednesday night. No doubt the quality will pick up another bit when the games kind of start to throw in, and particularly when we come towards the end of the season where the big occasions are really up for grabs. I think we'll really see it increase a lot then.
Yeah, and another thing I suppose that has to be taken into consideration, and I think Pep Guardiola expressed concerns about it in his interview on his press conference on Tuesday, was the fact that he's concerned about the fact that the run-in time, the preparation time mightn't have been sufficient in terms of it only being really 3 weeks long. As a result of that, we saw 3 players go off injured in that match against Arsenal. What's your take on that? Do you think they should have possibly delayed it for another week or two, given them 6 weeks like the Bundesliga or La Liga? What's your take on that?
No, I think it was time to go back. You look at everybody that got a lot of during the kind of the discussions really to the start of Project Reset, where everybody was pretty much throwing their toys out of the pram there at stages, and I think a lot of people had kind of self-confessed interests that they were kind of using as agendas. Like take for instance last season, there was only 3 weeks preparation for a lot of the international players in the Man City squad for the Charity Shield. So we've seen these short turnarounds before. That being said, it was a little bit more push, but it's time. Like there's only a certain amount of a window of opportunity really for football to come back. I think three weeks was enough. It's time. Even the injuries last night, you wouldn't really say that they were as a result of major kind of fatigue. There were more kind of freakish kind of impact injuries, like even like the Garcia injury was absolutely sickening to watch, but that was just a freak where Edison does his usual, where he comes flying out almost blindly. Like you can't doubt his commitment, but he's going to do serious damage to himself soon if he keeps like doing like that. Like the flashback of the Manny incident came into my mind straight away, where it's almost similarly, where the other player is looking at the ball and he's coming flying out. But
yeah,
the Arsenal injuries, they're Arsenal are renowned to get injuries at the best of times as well. I don't think you can particularly put this down to a 3-week rest period. No doubt it's not the best preparation, but I don't think it's going to be as big as impact as people will make out.
Okay, well, hopefully we don't see kind of repeat. And look, you're right as well. And there's another aspect to it, in that you can have as much preseason training as you want, but it doesn't really live up to match practice at Premier League standard until you kind of get that blooding in of the physical contact between players in full competition. That's when people generally tend to see these types of injuries.
Yeah, and absolutely. And, as well as that, they're kind of restricted as well. Like you could have another week or two, even another 3 or 4 weeks on the training ground, but it's only going to be A versus B games, really. In reality, I know they had a round of friendly games with teams from the Championship and a little bit lower, but because of the restrictions in place, you're not going to be able to have high quality preparation games. So you may as well just get out of the pitch and go for it and get it. And I think it showed, like, don't get me wrong, at some stages last night, particularly, or Wednesday night, particularly some of the first game, for instance, they weren't the purest in their eye. But there's games like that always are never going to be too much of an entertaining battle. So
there are dead rubber matches all the time. Of course there are. Yeah. Speaking about that match, obviously it ended 0-0. The massive talking point is 42nd minute. Oliver Norwood crosses in the ball, goes into the keeper's hands. He flops back into the net with the ball in his arms. Hawkeye doesn't recognize this and register it. So Mike Oliver looks at his watch. He indicates that he hasn't been notified that the ball has crossed the line. It doesn't go to VAR. The goal doesn't stand, and Sheffield United don't get the points as a result of it. What is your take on this?
Oh, it's just laughable, really, wasn't it? And it just goes to show, you talk about the English Premier League being, the best league in the world and the most dramatic. Yet again, it shows that the match officials, in my mind, just aren't up to scratch. I think this sort of situation could only happen in the Premier League. You're almost watching it in absolute disbelief. Like, you're going to award the goal now, aren't you? Like, it was so clearly over the line. And I know that they talk about the watch not going off and the reliance on technology, but surely the linesman has to be looking straight across and notice that that isn't right. And then let's not get talking about VAR the whole over a minute, not to cop on that. Oh no, that's over the line. Surely, how can you? I just don't get it. And you hear some of the referees come out kind of defending each other a little bit over the course of the next day, and they're all going, "Oh well, he's so reliant on technology." Well, that's not what VAR is for. VAR is supposed to review these big opportunities. I just don't understand how somebody watching that in a position that you are reviewing any key moments couldn't go, oh, hold on a second here. That before you take that next free kick, let's just have another look at this. I'm not so sure. Well, it's just laughable, isn't it?
Explain to me how that happens. So, like, say, for instance, Mike Oliver is well away from it and he's looking at it at an angle that he can't see it from that kind of that profile view. But surely, as you say, a linesman can see it. Like, it's as if he's in a hammock in the side netting hole cradling the ball. Like, there's no way you could miss that. So how can that linesman not signal to the video assistant referee, you need to check this out? Clearly goal line technology has not worked. Surely, like, someone should assume responsibility in that case.
Yeah, no, I think responsibility is the key word. Now, I do have to, you have to give them, the officials on the pitch, a benefit of doubt, because unlike the footballers as well, they have been rusty as well. They haven't been having the opportunity for training, so there's no doubt there's a little bit of rustiness there as well. And I think it's probably seen that this happened in the first game back. It probably would never happen again. It is a freak scenario. But I think it's the first 9,000 games that a situation like this has happened, and it almost, without going too deep in it, it's almost kind of one of the curses of modern society, where we're almost totally reliant on technology and our brain doesn't work. It reminds me actually of, I was just thinking back over, it reminds me of a story I first heard. I think it was around the time when sat-navs first came out. This is pre-Google Maps and stuff like that. And there was the next big thing, and obviously the maps weren't up to scratch. and somebody followed the course of the sat nav religiously in London and ended up in the Thames, there has to be a moment of doubt where you this little box, this piece of technology, is telling me something. I gotta just take a moment here, count to 5, and let me just assess it and let me reattach my brain here for a second. But I would like the linesman. Yes, I think he has to see it. He's right on the goal line as well, because it's from a set piece, so he's looking straight across. It should be copped, but I would hold the biggest responsibility on the VAR official, like how they didn't see that with the benefit of the the replays that they would have had is mind-boggling. Really, I just, that's the thing for me that I just can't understand. If VAR isn't solving situations like that, or at least stopping the game for a second while there was a pause, then what are they doing there? Really, it's just laughable, really.
But can I ask you then, like, is the video assistant referee, is VAR independent? As in, like, can they assess that and say, hold on 1 second, we need to look at this? Or because their excuse for this is that they rely on goal line technology in that situation to notify them that they should check, that they're not independent, they're reliant. Is that correct or no?
I don't believe so, no. So obviously there is the Hawkeye watches, which was, you saw Michael Oliver hold his hand to his wrist, because that was usually the trigger, the mechanism. But in Stockley Park, who's Paul Tierney Wednesday night was the VAR official. He's there in a room with an IT consultant, so he can pull up any replay that you want, and he has a multiple of different angles at his disposal there, and he had adequate time, because, as I said, there was over a minute before the next pause of play, so he got completely bamboozled, really. I think the reality is, again, I go back to players being caught on the hop and a little bit rusty. Here was another situation of being rusty. Panicked, didn't really see anything, which is crazy, because I don't see how anybody reviewing that game with responsibility with the camera angles that were available, because look, we all saw it straight away. You go, hold on a second, that has to be over. And I suppose it's, without getting too deep into it as well, it's probably another situation where if there had been a crowd there as well, it would have rated things a little bit more as well, to a certain extent. But with that being said, it's a VAR room. It's how many kilometers, miles away in London from the game, in an isolated bomb kind of bunker, really, where they have they're locked off from the real world, and they have all the TV cameras available to them. You've got to be copping that. You really, really got to be copping. And it's we laugh about it at times, but it could be such an important goal on both ends of the table. Like, a win last night had Sheffield United ahead of United, as they're going for an unthinkable Champions League spot. And let's not even talk about the difference that could have been made on the bottom. There's one little thing, without going too much in tangent, it flashed into my head as well. So I believe the reports are that Michael Oliver's watch went off at half time. That's when he got the trigger, when Hawkeye kind of woke up and he got it. And then they realised a bit more, because Sheffield United officials were down the tunnel to greet the officials. But I would have thought, at some stage like that, Michael Oliver has to let the captains know, hold on a second here, this is a grave mistake on the errors of the game. And we didn't, like, you go back to, you probably do remember, there was a championship game last season between Aston Villa and Leeds, where there was an indirect free kick, or the ball was put out of play, and Villa kicked the ball back to Leeds, and Bamford went against the spirit of the game and didn't allow the ball to go down, and chased in the ball and scored a goal from it. And it was absolutely world war at the time. You remember the game I'm talking about? And then Bielsa, the Leeds manager, told his team just to park to one side, because of the injustice of it, to walk the ball into the net. It would have been ironic would have Villa, if they had opportunity had been presented to them, go, well, okay, you got the other end of sporting karma. Last time, are you going to be as honourable this time? It would have led to a hell of a lot of different conversations, put it that way. But it would have been fascinating to see what happened there.
Yeah, indeed. And look at it, it continues the speculation about technology in football, and whether it's the benefit outweighs the nuisance value. But like, I certainly think it does. But it is funny when things like this pop up. Funny because it could have such dire implications, as you say.
Absolutely.
But from contentious and controversial to calamitous, talk to me about David Luiz last night against City. 25 minutes on the pitch and he lost in the game.
I've seen this movie before many times. It appears like 25 minutes to come on as a substitute early in the first half. Your team are away against the most expensively assembled squad ever, and you give away 2 goals, you give away a penalty, and you get sent off. That's one hell of an impact, isn't it? It's just, it's just like yeah, everybody, you feel a bit bad, dishing players and stuff like that, because it has been tough for them as well. And don't go out there, no doubt, to make mistakes. But he keeps on making the same mistake over and over and over again. Like even that attempt of the tackle that he did for the penalty, like we've seen him get rinsed by Salah earlier on the season. That's his usual line. He doesn't appear to take in any kind of progression or the basics of defending. It's just calamitous, really. Like if a kid did that in an under 10 or under 12 game, you'd absolutely irate them. I just don't understand. There seems to be no acknowledgement there at all. And then his interview after the game was just car crash.
Tell me about this.
I don't think I've seen an Arsenal captain go so crazy since William Gallas at St Andrews, or back in the day when they blew the title bid, and he sat on the centre circle on his hands and knees for ages. It was just like even this guy at the time, we're like, hold on a second, he's coming out. Okay, because he had a hocked. He approached the guy to give the interview, and then to talk like that, and you're like, what? Did he just say that?
Yeah. What? So he comes out ostensibly to take responsibility for doing it, but then he says, and like it was really kind of like surreptitiously inserted it into his conversation, I should have made a different decision in the last 2 months about my contract, if I stay here or not. And whoever was interviewing had said, sorry, I'm a bit far away from you. Could you just repeat that? And what
did you actually say that?
Yeah, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, like I can only try to read between the lines. I can only assume that from his version that we saw there, that he wants to stay at Arsenal. He wants to sign a new contract at Arsenal. And you're led to believe by what he said that Arteta wants him to sign as well. So clearly the only other option and the only other variable here is that the club don't want to offer him a new contract. And let's be honest, judging by his performance last night, you'd want to be off your face to even consider it. It just doesn't seem a logical thing to do. As Arsenal rebuilding at the moment, why on earth would you give a player that makes that many mistakes a new contract? But clearly the club, so that's a dispute, and it obviously has been going on for some time. And I think he was saying, I'll go out here, I'll put all the pressure back on the club. Hopefully they will force me to get give me a new contract. But it's just surreal. And Arsenal, for all the good work that Arteta has done in his time there, and don't get me wrong, I think he's done quite well given the resources available. But you look at the likes of Aubameyang, who's their captain, who pretty much didn't touch the ball, looks like he's on his way out as well, had no more interest in the game last night. David Luiz, we've talked about plenty already. I'm not going to go down that same hymn sheet again. And then the biggest one for me is Ozil. Like Arteta says he's left out for tactical reasons. Fine, fair enough. I can kind of see that. You can see why playing away at City, you don't want to have a player that, however talented he is, isn't going to match it with work rate. So fair enough, you can understand that. But if you're leaving a player out that's 350k a week and leave him out regularly because for tactical reasons, something's not right there.
Yeah, doesn't add up there. Yeah,
there's a whole structure mismatch. Really big dark times.
Very dark times, but from darkness into light, you're a massive Liverpool supporter. You've been waiting 30 years for this season. Talk to me about it. Tell me about the anticipation, the excitement. What are you feeling at the moment?
Yeah, it was a bit surreal. If I take my work hat off for a minute and just go back to being the kid.
Oh, put on the Liverpool hat.
the very kid, it's literally it's not a cliche. It's the truth. It's something waited for all my life. I grew up listening to my parents telling me about all the title wins, and for various reasons it hasn't happened to date. And there's been so many close calls over the years, and in recent years in particular. And it's become I suppose no more than kind of Mayo in Gaelic football circles. It's become that joke that this is Liverpool's year, etc., etc. And we've seen it seems like every sort of scenario that could go wrong over the years, and even gone back to last season to play that well and still and only lose one game and still not get over the line. It was almost incredible, really. You go back to Gerrard's slip, even the Crystal Palace 3-3. There's a couple of ones over the company goal last season as well. Even gone back to the times with Rafa there as well. There was a couple of run-ins, a couple of decisions that maybe didn't go little rubs of the greens. There's the fact statement, the speech from Rafa. There's been so many over the years. It's just been one thing after another to finally get over the line. And you can't, to the club of Liverpool, and I've been lucky enough to cover Liverpool, quite intimately over the last couple of years in particularly, but there isn't enough words in the English dictionary to describe how much of an obsession it is and how much of a how badly that club and that footballing city wants the league title back. It's indescribable, really. So it's going to happen pretty soon, maybe even the next week or so. So it'll be a weird situation given the current scenario and the current world events, but it's not going to take away in a weird way. And I know from talking to people close to the setup there as well, no doubt Jurgen Klopp will use this as the extra motivation for next season. Go win it again, go win it. So the fans are, hopefully, touch wood, world is back to more of a normal state, if that's the right description for it, and people can come back to football stadiums and sporting arenas around the world, and at least in a reduced capacity. But I would imagine next season we should see people coming back, that he will be saying to his team, we won it last year, that was great. It's unfortunate that the fans weren't there. Go win it and celebrate in front of the fans, because I've been lucky enough to be at some incredible occasions at Anfield over the years, but when lifting the trophy with a full crowd would have been just crazy, would have been emotional.
The whole city would have been incredible. Like, I know plenty of Liverpool fans who were just going to go to Liverpool for that weekend, like Lime Street, Matthew Street. It'd be incredible. It'd be the atmosphere, the unbridled joy. It would be akin to Mayo winning the All-Ireland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and you saw some incredible scenes after the Champions League win last year, and some of the scenes from the parade, and people are just queuing for hours and hours, and it's just an absolute sea of red. You'd have multiplied that by an infinite amount, really. It would have been even taking the weekend, it all going well. It was going to be the Chelsea game. That was going to be the presentation. Like, you couldn't get a B&B or a couch or anything like that within 100 miles of Liverpool. It was just crazy, the demand for it. And there was, as you said, there was so many people, so many Irish people as well had planned to go over. But look, other things got in the way. Obviously, the more important things. But when it does happen, you can even hear Klopp. He gave an interview there a week or two ago, and he said, it doesn't matter when, we're going to have that celebration, even if it's in the middle of next season, whatever. So no doubt when it happens, it'll be very, very special. But right now, from I suppose, Liverpool fans' point of view, it's just a case of getting that done, getting it over the line. Get over the line. Yeah. I think Liverpool fans kind of discreetly put on their Arsenal hats last night or Wednesday night and hoped for a little bit of hope that the unthinkable could have happened. So it could have happened at the weekend, but from a weird way, if everything goes to plan, Liverpool will win their next two games. It'll be at home to Crystal Palace, and that has another tangent of side stories. It goes back to the 3-3 where everything fell apart, and Liverpool were rightly mocked for being in a situation where they're chasing goals for goal difference to almost blowing the game, and it's a game that's been talked about for death, really, probably the end of the Rodgers era, really. But to come back and to win it in a game like that against them with a former manager who's probably most of the most darkest times of modern Liverpool fans, the Roy Hodgson era was just indescribably bad. So there's so many tangents and so many angles, as there always seems to be with Liverpool. But yeah, no, it'll be special when it happens.
I'm sure it will. The last thing I just want to talk to, we're running out a little bit of time, but I think it's important to mention, we saw in the Sheffield United versus Villa match yesterday, both sets of players and the referee take a knee in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. How important is it for UEFA, FIFA, global football organizations to recognize the issue of racism in football and to actually do something about it, something tangible this time around?
Yeah, look, it's just it's a very, I find it difficult at times to talk about it because it's such an important issue, and it's an issue far bigger than football, because even prior to the COVID pandemic, the world is in a strange place politically, and we won't go too deep into it, but you've seen the rise of not nice aspects of society coming across the world, and there's been various examples of that. And even you look at some of the politicians' decisions and votes that have allowed they've stirred up hatred again, and they've stirred up a lot of darkness in society that we hope that I don't want to go too much deep on it on a sports show, but it's allowed a platform, whatever your political view, it's allowed a platform for people to come out with these backward thinking views that you thought were kind of pushed to one side in the society, had moved on, and sadly it hasn't. And you've seen that in examples where, well, obviously everybody keeps coming back to the England-Bulgaria game where it was so open and it was, so in your face on the game. But we've seen many examples, and everybody knows the situations as well, and it's just horrible. And then you see what's going on at the US at the moment as well. It's dark, and it's such a horrible thing that you're right. FIFA and Uefa and all the other authorities, they can talk the talk, but until like real punishment is put out, until there's a real stamp put in place, and let's hope that this is the start of it. Really, that I always think that even at the worst times, is all like, go back to the Liverpool anthem. At the end of the storm, there's a golden sky. Even in the worst possible situation that we saw happen in the US, that we've seen a bit of positivity. We've seen the backlash where people are going, look, this is it. Enough is enough. And even simple things. I know it's not I'm not comparing the two, but you look at the power of footballers have what Marcus Rashford has so wonderfully done. Incredible work, but it just goes to show the power that football has, and there's a platform there to do some right. And footballers have got bastards a lot of the time correctly, but sometimes completely over the top, and we've seen that even from UK politicians in the last couple of months as well. So it's important that everybody gets together and something important, and I repeat what you said there again, Joe. Something tangible happens, because enough really is enough, and it's hard to believe in that 2020 we're still talking about this absolutely scourge of society. It's sickening, really.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. I think on two fronts. First of all, it is fantastic to see the players take it upon themselves to cause this awareness, to stand up and make a stand and raise the awareness. And it's now for the institutions to take the baton and institute rechange. And I hope to see that happen in the future. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode, Jonathan. It was really enjoyable to chat to you. I really appreciate it, and good luck with the rest of the season. I'm sure you will enjoy it and celebrate it in your own unique way.
We sure will. Thank you, Joe. My pleasure.
Thanks a million. So that's it for us this week, folks. Thank you so much to my guest, Jonathan Higgins. Thanks, as always, to yourself as watching. We will be back next week, and I hope to see you then. In the meantime, be good and look after yourself.
Irish Media Network.